Hello, everyone. Welcome to the NTI PodTalk. My name is Dianne Cutler, and I'm the Director of Nutrition Therapy Institute. This PodTalk is our opportunity to have fun conversations with interesting people who have interesting things to say about nutrition, food, and health. I talk to NTI instructors, students and grads, to health industry professionals, to farmers, and anyone else who has an interest in nutritional wellness. While many of our listeners come from within the NTI community as students and grads, we also have prospective students who tune in. And to those listeners in particular, I hope you find that the people we talk to inspire you to finally make the jump to pursue your passion and come to school here at NTI. So without further ado, let's get on with the show. Hello there, this is Dianne Cutler with another edition of the NTI PodTalk. I am pleased today to welcome Dr. Ellen Cutler, who is a chiropractor, but she is most famously known as the creator of the Ellen Cutler Method, ECM. And this is a healing modality that uses a holistic, comprehensive approach to address chronic illnesses. This includes the use of therapeutic enzymes, energetic desensitization, gentle detoxification, and nutritional strategies. And we're going to ask her all about those things. So thank you so much, Dr. Ellen, for being here. I'm really happy to have you on the podcast.
Thank you so much. And I love that introduction. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Well, I also want to point out that you are the author of several books. The one that you are most well known for is MicroMiracles, Discover the Healing Power of Enzymes. Originally written, I believe, in 2005, and now you're coming out with a revised edition. So I'm interested in hearing about, some tidbits about what are going to be in the revised edition. So we'll get to that as well. But before we kind of get into those details, I always like to ask people's origin story, like what brought you, to this journey towards sort of holistic health and holistic wellness and the use of enzymes and supplements and all these kinds of things. Like, how did you get to where you are?
Great question. And so in my family, I have a twin brother, and I always wanted to go into health. And a Jewish family, and they always said, you go, my brother, you be a doctor, and Ellen, you be a teacher. And last thing I ever wanted to do is a teacher. Of course, now I'm a teacher too.
Right. I was going to say, and here you are.
So I was kind of on my own to do what I needed to do. And I always had problems with digesting food ever since I can remember. I always felt bloated. Like I would wake up in the morning, my belly was flat, and then I would get bloated. And I couldn't wear pants that buttoned or anything. And nobody understood. I couldn't talk to my parents about that,
Mm-hmm.
And it got worse and worse. And so I decided that I wanted to look into more holistic therapy. So I ended up going to chiropractic school, not to be a chiropractor, because I never even had a chiropractic adjustment, more for nutrition, to learn nutrition.
Right.
And because I couldn't really afford medical school, so chiropractic school at that time was more affordable. And so while I was in school, I had to support myself and then study. It was intense, hardly slept. My symptoms got worse. I was diagnosed with ulcerative colitis. Mm-hmm. And then their therapies were, steroids and then possibly surgery. And here I'm a holistic practitioner. What am I going to do now?
Right.
So I'm a neurotic. I 24/7. I work at healing. This is my life,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I took a postgraduate course, 3-year course in orthopedics, and I met a mentor there. One of my mentors that knew my symptoms and said, "Did you ever try a digestive enzyme?" And at that time, nobody wasn't on the radar. Nobody knew what a digestive enzyme is. So I took a full spectrum digestive enzyme, but specifically emphasized carbohydrate digestion, because when I get bloated, it's usually a couple hours after. It always means you're carbohydrate intolerant.
Mm-hmm.
So he said, try it. Well, Within 2 weeks, never had a problem again.
Wow. Yeah.
But not only that, I noticed all these other amazing changes. Fatigue was better, my hair, my skin, hormones were balanced. It was a miracle. And so I gave every one of my patients, when I worked as a chiropractor, a digestive enzyme if they came in with a headache or they came in with a shoulder pain or anything. And I saw miracles. And that's why I wrote the book. And so I became passionate about digestive enzymes because it is I believe, the most important number one supplement people should be taking, because my motto, it's not just what you eat, it's what you digest. So that's my quick story, but never had that problem. I could wear button pants, and I'm passionate about good, healthy digestion. It's, if you get up in the morning and and your gut doesn't feel well, it's really hard to feel good all day, right? We're like, our attention goes right there.
Right.
So having a healthy gut, I would never want to be that way again.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And, that you are what you digest and absorb is kind of an expansion of this statement that people have said for a long time: you are what you eat, and it makes it sound like, and it's important. We do need to eat a nutrient dense diet, and I want to ask you about your
Good.
kind of thoughts about nutrition. But so we definitely do need to eat a nutrient dense diet, because the nutrients that our body needs ultimately come from our food. But absolutely, if you can't digest your food, you're not going to be absorbing those nutrients. Right. And, that's also a really strong principle that we talk about here too. And, in a nutrition school, of course, we are focusing on, helping our clients make food choices that is going to increase the nutrient density of their diet. But you always have to look at their capacity to digest and absorb those great nutrients, right? Right. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So you mentioned that, it's what I've seen and what I hear from you based on your history is that gut health is a big issue, right? A big thing. So can you talk about the relationship between gut health and systemic chronic illness and chronic disease? Because, your whole ECM method is based on, protocols for chronic illness, not just for gut health. So how does gut health influence chronic disease?
Well, my ECM technique gets to the root of what's going on. This is my journey throughout my healing. What's at the root of it? Chiropractic is good, but why do they keep needing adjustments all the time? Right. Why doesn't it just stay? It would drive me nuts. So I found most people have food sensitivities, not food allergies. We hear about it, but that's not the most common. 80% of, probably more, of the population has food intolerance or food sensitivities. Food sensitivities can cause all kinds of different symptoms. One of the first things that I look at with my ECM is what foods you're sensitive to. And that plays into the gut. So people, even with asthma or chronic fatigue or headaches or eczema or muscle pain, inflammation, what they're eating and what they're digesting and what sensitivities are clearly an important aspect of it. So it can affect every single part of the body. But what I had found too is taking a digestive enzyme, that's what happened to me, helps reduce 90% of those food sensitivities. It's incredible. It's like people's illnesses or conditions or problems, sometimes within 2 weeks, even overnight, are relieved, or they can't believe it, because food sensitivities are key. So that's an important understanding of gut health for sure. And then there are things like leaky gut that can happen from eating foods that you're intolerant to. And of course, I look at other things also that could be affecting the gut. But the gut health, as we are seeing now, and I saw this 40 years ago. Now, of course, it's talked about the brain fog or looking at attention deficit. A lot of that has to do with what's going on in the gut. And a lot of that can boil down to food sensitivities. It's so darn simple sometimes.
Yeah.
It drives me nuts because people end up going on all these drugs and spending tons of money on all kinds of different tests. Not that I don't look at it, but what are you eating and what are you digesting is so key.
Right. Exactly. So food sensitivities, what methods do you use to assess food sensitivities?
So my ECM method, I first started using muscle testing because as a chiropractor, I became trained in applied kinesiology and muscle testing.
Right.
But I found that the muscle gets fatigued with someone. I needed something else to evaluate. I went all over the world searching for techniques, instrumentation, anything that could help broaden my ability to evaluate. And I came across a machine. I use this machine called Avatar. It's based on Vol method. It's an energetic analysis that was used to measure meridians, testing, etc. And I spent time with some of the experts in energetic testing for years to learn how to do it, and then I can create my own. So I created my own program. So I have a program here that I teach to people that evaluates through testing meridians what your food sensitivities are. Muscle testing is great. It's not as accurate, I believe, as this is because your muscle can be fatigued, but it's so accurate. The problem is with blood testing. First of all, it only tests IgE and IgE. IgE is more of an intense allergy, and IgG. There's more to testing allergies or sensitivities than just looking at IgG. You could be. So, for example, when I ate every day when I was a little girl, my parents fought. My mother would sit there and cry, and my father would leave. So I had emotional relationships, emotional reactivities with foods that caused the bloating. So there are other,
and that's not going to show up in a blood test, right?
And it's so interesting I'm so glad I'm talking about this because I don't get a chance to say that because people bring in, well, this one I'm allergic to. I said, I'm fine, but I find a lot more.
Right.
For example, you could have a virus that you had when you were a kid. Energetically, you're still reacting to it. Guess what? That could also be interrupting some foods that you're eating and can cause some food sensitivities and wonder why you feel fatigued after you eat because there's an interaction with virus. The ECM is an incredible tool to evaluate any situation and then advise what to do. I have a desensitization technique that I do on them and they learn it. Or I recommend other things too as well. But digestive enzymes, again, are the key first ingredient, first technique, first therapy I use.
Sure. So that leads me to a question, and this involves your desensitization strategy as well as the enzymes. So with someone who has food sensitivities, in a very, conventional way of thinking, if someone has a food sensitivity, you would tell them, okay, then you shouldn't be eating that food, avoid that food, try to find, alternatives or bypass it or whatever. So in your method, are you saying that you're not, the end goal is not to have to avoid that food, it's to get over this, get over the sensitivity,
right? To desensitize, correct the reactivity to the food. Absolutely. There are some foods that when you learn the technique and become more adept at it, you can see things that are very highly inflammatory or some that are slightly. The ones that are highly, maybe I would recommend not eating them. So, but yes, I can correct those sensitivities with taking a digestive enzyme and then clearing it. We call it clearing or correcting with the technique. And it's like an acupressure technique. What it does is it retrains the brain. It snaps you out of that sensitivity by knowing and identifying all the aspects of that sensitivity. But there are some foods I really don't think people need to be eating, period.
Well, and I was going to ask you that. And so that leads perfectly into, segues perfectly into this. So can you talk about what some of those foods are?
Yes. Sugars.
Yeah, sure. Right.
Of course. But you know what happens too is when you desensitize, you can actually stop the craving. Which is interesting because people say, I crave sugars. How am I going to stop them? And clearing the sensitivity to it helps. So sugars, processed foods, for sure. Dairy. There is not one condition that I have found in my years and years of working in the health field that dairy is not implicated in. Whether you're dealing with headaches, or you're dealing with eczema, or you're dealing with even the possibility of breast cancer can become from milk casein. So that's one that I do. I am very more not into grains either.
Sure.
I people who are carbohydrate intolerant, and I find that out when I'm working on them, shouldn't be eating that many carbs, period.
Yeah, right.
And grains are, some people are grainitarians. They think they should. It's inflammatory. That's what I found. Maybe in Europe or some other countries, it's not like that, but here it is inflammatory. And I think gluten is a consideration for most people, especially as you get older and you're dealing with things like brain fog or children with ADD, or you're dealing with children that have autism or neurodiverse, some other kinds of situation like that. I think you have to look at gluten too, for sure. So those foods are the main one. And I'm a raw vegan. So I don't recommend, I know not everyone can be a vegan. Of course, I would like that. But I do recommend 75% of the food is whole plant-based food. That's what I feel. There's no downside to it. It's only for your health and longevity.
Right. All right. So that kind of covers your sort of nutritional principles that you incorporate. Are there others? I mean, I think okay. So no others. Let's get to the digestive enzymes. So talk about for our immediate audience, our students and our graduates that participate in our program, they know what enzymes are, but we have others, in the general population that listen to this podcast. So can you talk about what are enzymes? Why do we need them? What are digestive enzymes? What is this specific name, digestive enzymes, and why do they play such a big role in your ECM method?
Yes. Well, the enzymes are proteins. And there are 3 different types of enzymes. There's digestive enzymes that our body naturally produces to digest our food. There are food enzymes that are in plant food. And then there are metabolic enzymes that really almost every system of our body needs those metabolic enzymes to function, whether you're dealing with the immune system or repair system, regenerative system in our body, or any other kind of kidneys, etc., all need those enzymes. So that's important, those 3 different enzymes. We can't replace our digestive enzymes and we can't replace our metabolic enzymes, but what happens is because we don't eat enough plant food and we don't chew it well enough, we're not getting those food enzymes that help digest the food that we're eating. And guess what? The soil these days have been over agriculturized. So the byproducts that are needed to make those enzymes in those plants are not there. So we're devoid of those food enzymes. And that's important to understand. So even if you do chew your food well, you might be enzyme deficient and you will have symptoms that result. People who don't digest fat tend to have symptoms right after they eat, and protein. both they'll have bloating or whatever after. People who are carbohydrate intolerant, don't digest carbohydrates, tend to have problems a couple hours or later on. They'll get symptoms. And that's interesting to understand. People who crave salt are fat intolerant. People who whatever you crave, you're most intolerant to. So if you're craving sugars, you're probably intolerant to sugars. If you're craving protein, you're probably intolerant to protein, and the same with fat. So I have found that people are not so much vitamin deficient, they're enzyme deficient. And what happens is when you aren't eating for a while, you're not digesting that food because you don't have those food enzymes, your body steals it from your metabolic enzyme load. So guess what? You get sick more often. You can't repair after having a sprain or whatever. You notice you have more inflammation. And you're tired all the time. Your mitochondria is not working as well because you're utilizing some of those important enzymes to digest your food. So if you take a digestive enzyme, and most people need a full spectrum digestive enzyme. What does that mean? That means you have things like amylase in there, disaccharidase, sucrase, for all the sugars, you have protease or peptidase for the protein, and you have lipase for the fat. And then you have cellulase, because our body doesn't even produce any cellulase.
Right.
We have to chew our food to break down the cellulose. So that's a full spectrum. Most people do great on that. Sometimes people need a little bit more protein in the protein digestive enzyme. That's where the ECM technique comes in to evaluate that. And some people who tend to get a lot of reflux or GERD, which all of you probably know about in your school, and some of you don't know about, but you get reflux, heartburn, symptoms like that. They sometimes have really bad protein digestion. Sometimes they need another enzyme to soothe the stomach. We have one I use that's on my website called GI Calm. That's like a miracle. Once you learn and start it, you will never leave home on a vacation or anywhere without it. Because it not only digests your food, it also soothes the stomach or esophagus or anywhere, the whole GI tract. So that gives you a good idea of what, but most people do with a good full spectrum digestive enzyme. And I tell them to take it like 10 minutes before they eat. At least every meal would be great, but at least one time a day would even help. And sometimes you can take it after they eat too. That's new studies that just came out that even after you eat, it helps. So before you eat makes more sense.
Yeah, obviously. Right. Yeah. So talking about GERD and other things about digestion, do you focus at all or talk at all about the role of hydrochloric acid and people have hypochlorhydria? Is that something that's addressed in your program as well?
Yes. And sometimes I used to never use it because I used to feel that if you digest your food, you won't need that. But sometimes in the interim, or I have definitely used hydrochloric acid for protein digestion, in addition to the digestive enzyme, especially when they're eating protein for hypochlorhydria. Definitely. So I'm not now against it. If you talked to me 40 years ago, I would say no. But but now I definitely have recommended it. But first, I start with probably a good protein digestive enzyme. And protein digestion enzyme could also have the others in it. It just maybe has a little bit more protease or the peptidase to digest the protein, for sure. But if you're a person that's on a carnivore diet or the keto diet or paleo diet, you have to take a digestive enzyme. Otherwise, it's going to... when these foods are not digested, they can leak out into the bloodstream and they can cause havoc. You can become allergic to these things. That's how allergies start happening, is from not digesting the food. They leak out. So I think everyone should, but please save your liver, save your body, take a digestive enzyme if you're doing that diet, if you feel that diet's working for you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. All right. Another pillar of your ECM method is detoxification. And you're very specific to say that it is organ-specific detox. So can you talk about what this organ-specific, means in terms of detoxification?
So detoxification is critical these days, and even more so because we live in a toxic environment. I was just listening to something Harrison Ford was talking about with an interview, that he said 80% of the waters globally is toxic, is polluted.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we are inundated by toxicity. Another big one is mold, which I've been finding a lot, and that can make people very critically ill. We have a way of helping people with the mold by clearing mold and looking and seeing where it is. It's quite successful. So detoxification is the first thing I check with ECM before I even check anything, is to how your body. It's not so much how toxic you are, because people don't like to hear that they're toxic.
Right.
What does that mean?
Sure.
Am I a toxic person?
Sure. Yeah.
Get that, well, you're toxic. What does that mean? And so how they're detoxifying. So I look at and measure, there's a way to measure how their body's detoxifying. And if somebody's looking to lose weight, most of our toxins are stored in fat. So I think sometimes the weight loss programs don't work for them because they need to detoxify more efficiently. And that's the first step for them. So I look at that, and then I use different methods of detoxification depending on what I find that works for the person. There's a way of testing in ECM what's good for you. Like what is it, a homeopathic, or is it a intermittent fasting program for a while? Or I have some powders that I use what works for you. And I look at that. So that's always an important aspect. And every time that someone comes in, I always check their detoxification pathways, liver pathways, etc., and look at all the different vital organs of detoxification: the lymph, the lungs, the skin, the colon, that needs to be looked at. So that's organ specific. So when I look at someone, as where is it coming up? Because it gives me some information. Is it the kidneys? Is it the lymph? Is it the skin? Is that why you have your skin doesn't look as healthy as this? So I like the organ specific, and I like to detox gently. It doesn't have to be intense, because it can cause a lot of symptoms for sure.
Sure.
I've talked to people that came out with abscesses sometimes, or they can't even get out of bed because their body's trying to detoxify. So ECM can evaluate all of that, and so you don't have any harsh symptoms with the detoxification.
So when you say you check these things, every time someone comes in, you check these things, is all of this assessment being done on the machine that you use?
Yes,
Gotcha.
It's being done on the machine. And what's interesting also is sometimes people feel better just seeing what's going on when I'm testing them. I don't even have to do the clearing. It's incredible. It's amazing, the information, how important that is in your healing, knowing what's going on and understanding, oh, well, that's why I can't sleep. Or that's why I have urinary incontinence. By the way, I have a newsletter that I put out every month. Our next newsletter is on urinary incontinence, because that's a common problem that, guess what? Foods are a big one for that, for sure. So again, what you eat is very important.
Absolutely.
Yes, definitely.
What you eat, and then what you do or don't digest and absorb.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. So you talked a little bit about energetic desensitization. Is there anything else you want to mention about that? I'm still not clear about exactly what that means, but is that something that is done with the machine again, or is this like hands-on body stuff, or is it like meditation stuff? Like what is the energetic desensitization?
the energetic desensitization is not with the machine. The machine is the evaluation tool.
Okay.
It's a technique that is an acupuncture technique that I concuss different parts of the spine and acupressure points that
Okay.
changes it. It just like it like changes the program in the brain, because when you work on the spine, you're sending messages to the brain that, oh, this is the way I'm supposed to be. So it's like you're reforming, you're retraining the brain, reprogramming it so that you're not sensitive to it. So that is done. That's a good question. It's done on the body.
Okay.
And there are things that people can do at home, acupressure points. Sometimes I'll use some tapping for people that feel that can work.
Mm-hmm.
And I love the meditation. That might be, that's a good one too.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but people kind of find their own way of clearing. But, once you learn, your body learns it, it becomes very routine. It's like a learned response. So people say, well, I need to take this supplement. Can you make sure I'm okay with it? And can you clear it for me? Or can I clear it? Because a lot of people are sensitive to supplements, by the way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, sure. Absolutely.
I mean, if you don't digest the food, I can digest all those supplements.
Right.
So a lot of people are sensitive, and then they're wondering why they're having symptoms like, I'm having chronic diarrhea. Well, what are the supplements you're taking? Well, I'm taking this magnesium that, of course, that's what it is, So supplements are a big one. Too, to clear. So the energetic tech of evaluation is done through the machine and the testing. And I do it indirectly through Zoom too, which I teach also more to the more advanced people. So people don't have to come in. I did that even before the pandemic started. So I was right in the right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. It was.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I do it. There's ways of doing indirectly that works really well. So, and then the treatment is done via this meridian, testing, percussion that I do.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. That makes sense. Thank you for expanding on that.
Thank you for asking that.
Yeah. All right. So I want to go back to your book. You are updating your book, and it's going to be out any day now, so people can pre-order it, or maybe by the time this is published, it will be available for purchase. So, 2005, that was a long time ago. Can you talk about kind of the journey towards doing this revision, and kind of, tidbits of things that are going to be in the revision?
Well, it's so interesting. My husband's a physician also, and I also have a medical degree too. I actually went back and got my medical license too. I was talking about thinking that, it was written in 2005, and with all the new techniques, AI, we're still the same human beings. And so it's not, it's always, everything that's in there is pertinent right now.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Which is so interesting,
Yeah.
And so the book is basically looking at, of course, the miracle of enzymes, tons of case studies that I've had and now added some more, and look at many different chronic health problems, that really people suffer. Fibromyalgia is a big one.
Yeah.
And looking at enzymes, how enzymes can be an integral part of that healing. The new updated version, which is an expanded version on anti-aging, which I'm so excited about. But more exciting is post-pandemic enzyme use. So looking at and what I have seen with people with long COVID, which is probably more, if they say 1 out of every 5 people, I even think it's more than that. And sometimes things don't show up until later. That's something I can evaluate and see. And use of enzymes is really important. For example, there's an enzyme called protease that is one of the most important enzymes that I write about. It's anti-inflammatory, it helps with sleep, but it also can kill tumor cells. There's been studies done. So I always recommend everybody take 1 or 2 of those protease away from meals every day. So I talk a lot about that relative to post-pandemic COVID. And of course, again, digestive enzymes too. But I'm very excited to get that information out there. And again, for people to revisit enzymes and how important they are in the first step in your supplement list and in first step in healing is, again, is that good, healthy digestion. I can look at someone and see if they're on a digestive enzyme. I can see about their gut health. You can see it in their eyes, in their face, in their skin, their hairs. Women worry about losing hair, you know? And the first thing to look at is a B vitamin deficiency. And instead of maybe taking a lot of B vitamins, first digest your food and get those vitamins from your foods. You will notice one of the side effects of taking enzymes, your hair is so much healthier. And nails and skin. It's so notable. And again, hormones too, for men and women also. So I am happy to, again, republish and make people more aware of and revisit how important these enzyme supplements are for people.
Now, is the title going to be the same, or is there an adjustment to the title?
Yeah, title's the same. MicroMiracles, Discover the Healing Power of Enzymes. Yes.
Great. Okay. All right. Very good. So also, the next thing I want to talk about is the training that you do. So you've mentioned a couple of times that you train people. Can you talk about who participates in that training, how that training is done? And then I do have one question. In order to get trained as an ECM person, whether it's a practitioner or a lay person, but someone must have access to this machine, correct? Or okay. All right. Okay.
Yes.
All right. So talk about your training.
So the training, I didn't teach for a long time. Actually, my company I started initially was called Bioset. That's another reason I updated my book, because I lost that company with a very bad, taking advantage from a partner, a man, and lost my baby. And I was in trauma, even though I still had my practice. And, so it took a little while. And then, of course, I rebuilt it into ECM. So now I'm teaching again after 12 years. I used to teach hundreds and hundreds of people all over the world. And what's great is it's done via Zoom. And I decided, I used to just teach health practitioners, chiropractors, doctors, DOs, et cetera, dentists. I decided after the pandemic, like we said, is people want to do things at home for themselves. They want to help take care of themselves. Again, if something like this happens again or whatever, they want to be able to help themselves and their family. So I'm open to teaching anyone. And I just did my second training after a long time. And there were mothers there. It was wonderful. They learned and they're doing so well that the results are getting beyond amazing. So anybody who wants to learn, I'm open to it. Yes, part of it is purchasing the machine, and we have all of that. If you call Cynthia, who's my assistant, at my number, you see it on my website, they'll talk to you all about it. And the next one is coming up in the beginning of November, and we already have a bunch of people, so spots are closing up, because I don't like to take a big group on Zoom. I really want them to learn. And you will learn the basic ECM. You'll learn how to evaluate. You'll learn how to clear sensitivities. You'll learn about enzymes. You'll learn about nutrition. You'll learn more than you would ever. And honestly, there's no technique like this that exists. And I'm getting older, and I want people to take over, because I can't take any more people. My practice is totally closed. We get every day. Do you have a practitioner so-and-so? You have a practitioner so-and-so. We need practitioners. I would love your school. Yeah. If anyone's interested, we would love it. And that's my heart's desire for sure.
Yeah, well, absolutely. When our students and our grads hear this, certainly, I want to encourage them to reach out to you. And I'm going to ask you, how do people learn more about you, and what's your contact information? So we'll get to that. But, definitely it seems like something that our students and grads would be interested in taking your training.
And
so.
I would love to come talk to you, school, anytime you want. I mean, I've been doing this for 40 plus years. I have so much to share and offer on all different levels relative to nutrition and health. So I'm happy to Zoom or do whatever. That's great too. And if you want even to talk about the ECM, I'm happy to do that. But my website is drellencutler.com. Everything there is on that, and all the contact information is there. And Cynthia is my assistant. She will help. She's been with me for years and years. So
great. So do you do any kind of social media, YouTube? You do all that?
Yeah, my YouTube is Dr. Ellen Cutler, and my Facebook, I don't do that much Instagram, and but my Facebook, I have a lot of Facebook followers. It's called MicroMiracles, and every Monday I do a Miracle Monday, so that's recorded too. So I do a live, so you can listen to that, and again, subscribe to a newsletter. And my book on ECM, you can get when you subscribe to a newsletter, you get it free. It's an ebook, so you can learn all about ECM.
Great.
Much more than we've covered, for sure.
Great. All right. Well, great. You have a lot of resources for people to access, in addition to your training, or before someone gets to the point where they want to take training. So that's awesome.
Yes. And this was great. Thank you so much for a great interview. This was one of my best. You're so good.
Great. Good.
Really good.
Well, I had a great time. Thank you so much for participating and, being here, and we'll have to stay in touch. Thank you so much.
Yes. Thank you.
All righty. Okay. All right, everybody. Thanks so much for being here. We'll see you soon. Hi there, and thanks for listening today. If what you heard today inspires you to want to pursue an education in holistic nutrition here at Nutrition Therapy Institute, please check us out on our website, ntischool.com, and reach out to us at admissions@ntischool.com. Our in-depth, comprehensive education is sure to provide you with the knowledge and skills you need to create the work of your dreams. Do something that feeds your passion, aligns with your values, and fuels your drive for a vital and meaningful life. It will be rewarding for yourself, your family, and anyone else with whom you interact. And with that, see you on the next episode.